Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. Harry had never believed he would meet a boy he hated more than Dudley, but that was before he met Draco Malfoy. Typical, Harry said darkly. Harry had caught Ron prodding Dean's poster of West Ham football team, trying to make the players move. Privately, Harry felt she'd had good reason, because Neville managed to have an extraordinary number of accidents, even with both feet on the ground. Harry hadn't had a single letter since Hagrid's note, something that Malfoy had been quick to notice, of course. Harry and Ron jumped to their feet. At 3:30 that afternoon, Harry, Ron, and the other Gryffindors hurried down the front steps into the grounds for their first flying lesson. Harry had heard Fred and George Weasley complain about the school brooms, saying that some of them started to vibrate if you flew too high or always flew slightly to the left. Harry glanced down at his broom. Harry's broom jumped into his hand at once, but it was one of the few that did. Perhaps brooms, like horses, could tell when you were afraid, thought Harry. There was a quaver in Neville's voice that said only too clearly that he wanted to keep his feet on the ground. Harry and Ron were delighted when she told Malfoy he'd been doing it wrong for years. Harry saw his scared white face look down at the ground, falling away, saw him gasp, slip sideways off the broom, and... "Broken wrist," Harry heard her mutter. "Give that here, Malfoy," said Harry quietly. "Give it here!" Harry yelled, but Malfoy had leapt onto his broomstick and taken off. Harry grabbed his broom. Harry ignored her. "Give it here," Harry called, "or I'll knock you off that broom." Harry knew somehow what to do. Malfoy only just got out of the way in time. Harry made a sharp about turn and held the broom steady. Harry saw, as though in slow motion, the ball rise up in the air and then start to fall. "Harry Potter!" Harry caught sight of Malfoy, Crabbe, and Goyle's triumphant faces as he left, walking numbly in Professor McGonagall's wake as she strode towards the castle. She wrenched open doors and marched along corridors with Harry trotting miserably behind her. "Follow me, you two," said Professor McGonagall, and they marched on up the corridor, Wood looking curiously at Harry. Harry nodded silently. "He's just the build for a seeker, too," said Wood, now walking around Harry and staring at him. Professor McGonagall peered sternly over her glasses at Harry. Harry had just finished telling Ron what had happened when he'd left the grounds with Professor McGonagall. "A century," said Harry, shoveling pie into his mouth. Ron was so amazed, so impressed, he just sat and gaped at Harry. "I start training next week," said Harry. Fred and George Weasley now came into the hall, spotted Harry, and hurried over. "You must be good, Harry. Wood was almost skipping when he told us." "You're a lot braver now you're back on the ground and you've got your little friends with you," said Harry coolly. When Malfoy had gone, Ron and Harry looked at each other. "What is a wizard's duel?" said Harry. Catching the look on Harry's face, he added quickly, "But people only die in proper duels, you know, with real wizards." Hermione ignored him and spoke to Harry. "And it's really none of your business," said Harry. All the same, it wasn't what you'd call the perfect end to the day, Harry thought, as he lay awake much later listening to Dean and Seamus falling asleep. Neville wasn't back from the hospital wing. There was a very good chance they were going to get caught by Filch or Mrs. Norris, and Harry felt he was pushing his luck, breaking another school rule today. They had almost reached the portrait hole when a voice spoke from the chair nearest to them. "I can't believe you're going to do this, Harry." Harry couldn't believe anyone could be so interfering. "Shut up, both of you," said Harry sharply. "How's your arm?" said Harry. Hermione opened her mouth, perhaps to tell Ron exactly how to use the curse of the bogies, but Harry hissed at her to be quiet and beckoned them all forward. At every turn, Harry expected to run into Filch or Mrs. Norris, but they were lucky. Harry took out his wand in case Malfoy leapt in and started at once. Harry had only just raised his wand when they heard someone speak, and it wasn't Malfoy. Horror-struck, Harry waved madly at the other three to follow him as quickly as possible. They scurried silently towards the door, away from Filch's voice. "This way," Harry mouthed to the others, and petrified they began to creep down a long gallery full of suits of armor. "Run!" Harry yelled, and the four of them sprinted down the gallery, not looking back to see whether Filch was following. They swung around the doorpost and galloped down one corridor, then another, Harry in the lead without any idea where they were or where they were going. "I think we've lost him," Harry panted, leaning against the cold wall and wiping his forehead. "Malfoy tricked you," Hermione said to Harry. Harry thought she was probably right, but he wasn't going to tell her that. She grabbed Harry's wand, tapped the lock, and whispered, "Alohomora!" "He thinks this door is locked," Harry whispered, for Neville had been tugging on the sleeve of Harry's dressing gown for the last minute. Harry turned around and saw quite clearly what. It was standing quite still, all 6 eyes staring at them, and Harry knew that the only reason they weren't already dead was that their sudden appearance had taken it by surprise, but it was quickly getting over that. There was no mistaking what those thunderous growls meant. Harry groped for the doorknob. Between Filch and death, he'd take Filch. They fell backwards. Harry slammed the door shut, and they ran. They almost flew back down the corridor. "Never mind that. Pig snout, panted Harry, and the portrait swung forward. "The floor?" Harry suggested. But Hermione had given Harry something else to think about as he climbed back into bed. It looked as though Harry had found out where the grubby little package from Vault 713 was.